Welcome, everyone, to the Detroit Guitar Trio podcast, the DGT podcast. We want to abbreviate it. Very cool. So, this is our debut episode. Very exciting. So, we'll start things off with some brief introductions. My name is Ben Chapman. I've studied classical guitar performance at Wayne State University. There I completed my bachelor's and master's, both concentrating in classical guitar performance. Graduated in 2025. Now I teach at a nonprofit down in Detroit, classical guitar lessons, and at a local music studio. So that's what I have going on. I am joined by my colleagues, Scott and Tony. And I'll let them introduce themselves. Scott, why don't you go first?
Okay, so I also attended Wayne State and have a performance degree and a theory degree from Wayne State. And now I'm a professor there. And I teach, I have my own music studio in Detroit as well. So,
yeah, very cool. Tony, you are up.
I'm Tony. I've got a lot going on in my life, but for the purpose of this podcast, I'll kind of share stuff that's pertinent to this. I am a Suzuki classical guitar instructor and a registered teacher, active member of the Suzuki Association of Americas. So with that, I'm a co-director of a Suzuki music program in Southeast Michigan, where we teach weekly private lessons and group classes to over 100 students, where I oversee 8 teachers, where we teach violin, viola, cello, piano, and classical guitar. Additionally, I'm a program coordinator of a nonprofit program in Southwest Detroit that provides tuition-free classical guitar education to children in neglected communities. And in our second year, we have just over 30 students, and I teach with Ben.
Indeed, we do. A lot of fun stuff going on. Cool. So we are all three in a guitar trio. We have formed the band, Classical Guitar Trio. So one of our goals for this podcast is to share our experience putting the trio together, performing, rehearsing. So sort of like a documentary, or something where we can report in and share that experience. So that's one function of the podcast. Another function, at Wayne State, I studied mostly with Brian Roberts. He was the professor of guitar there. But then towards the end, I studied with Scott here, Professor Walter. Took a semester of private lessons with him. It was pretty great. And one thing that we would do is, talk pretty deeply about a lot of guitar stuff, technique stuff. So Scott had the idea, hey, let's start a podcast. And it'll give me an outlet so that I can vent about all my neuroticisms and obsessions about guitar technique. So that will kind of be the other function of the podcast, is to just talk about any guitar stuff we are interested in at the moment. So it'll be kind of off the cuff is the idea. I mean, we all have credentials and some experience, but this isn't going to be like doctoral dissertation, heavily researched stuff. So it'll be a little bit off the cuff and anecdotal. So, hopefully anything you hear listening to this will be helpful. But just keep that in mind. Cool. So we'll kick things off with a discussion. Something that I've been thinking about a lot lately is just how to hold the guitar. Yep, we're getting into some basics, but there's quite a bit there, I've discovered. So kind of in high school, played with the footrest. I think pretty much everyone probably starts with the footrest. And got to college, switched to a guitar support. Helped out a lot, I think. Didn't have to keep my leg raised. That felt nice. And I'm kind of built taller, so it's nice to have a guitar support. Played with the Gaetano for a minute, then switched to ergo play. But kind of the big change recently. I was getting some sciatic nerve pain, some exciting, not too bad of sciatic nerve pain, but like some irritation. So something had to get changed around a little bit. So I had to go on quite a bit of a deep dive and a kind of change some things up with how I was holding the guitar. I'll do my best to describe this kind of verbally and see what's up. But so I kind of just go through my experience recently, and then open the discussion up to Scott and Tony and kind of see what they think. So a couple of my discoveries. So first off, the position I'm using now, I am using the what's it called? The guitar lift quite a bit. Inspiration is there's a guitarist, a lot of YouTube work she's done, Alexandra Whittingham. She uses the guitar lift, and I pretty much copied how she's holding it. So I would say the biggest thing that helped with the sciatic nerve irritation is with the guitar lift, you can kind of center the guitar in between your legs and spread them both out evenly. With the ergo play, I felt that my right leg, and I play backwards. I play left-handed, so I'm kind of in trouble there, but I still play left-handed, whatever. My right leg was pointed forward, and I would swing my left leg out. So I think the excessive swinging of the hip out was what was causing some irritation. So with the guitar lift, I could space my legs out evenly, so kind of the burden was spread out between both of the legs, literally, so that helped a lot. I no longer have my irritation. So that was pretty good. The head is a bit higher. Head is kind of high. So that took some getting used to. Some kind of a knot in the shoulder, I guess, getting the muscle stronger. But getting used to it. So overall, I'm pretty happy with how I'm holding it at the moment. But yeah, I'd like to open it up to Scott and Tony a little bit and kind of just discuss how they hold their guitars, kind of their thinking behind it. Tony, why don't you go first? How do you approach it?
Yeah, when I first started playing for years, I used the footrest, and I was really happy with it. I didn't have any back issues or anything, and I found that it worked really well. Some things I would play with was the height, occasionally, just for some variation. And so, after teaching a while, it'd be nice to just adjust the height and, have some variation for my back. And but as I'm getting older and I'm teaching a lot, I find that having both of my feet on the floor is definitely much more comfortable. And so I did have a lesson with René Gallardo one time, and we were working on the position of the guitar that was maybe even perhaps better suited for me. And I had tried one of the ergo plays, I think the Troster, or I'm not sure how to say it. And I got a pretty good comfort with it. And with the guitar that I regularly use, I found that it really wasn't adhering well to the finish. And so I switched over to the SageWorks magnetic guitar support. And I absolutely love how stable and reliable that is. And I've been able to find a position that works really well for most chairs. And it's adjustable when I need to be, but so far where I have it, it's been pretty comfortable. So I play with both my feet flat on the floor. I try to keep my heels directly underneath my knees, so my calves are straight up and down, vertical. And ideally, depending on the chair, my thighs are either parallel to the ground or a little bit tilted down. Generally, it just depends on the chairs where I'm at when we perform. But I find a lot of those chairs in the hall that are like Wenger chairs, they're all the same height everywhere we go. So that's ideal. and my setup kind of fits kind of that general height. And I've been really happy with it. I think that I have the guitar a little bit more centered in my body with the support, as opposed when I was using the footrest, it was a little bit further to the left. I am right-handed.
Oh my.
And so with the support, I was able to bring the body of the guitar a little bit more centered, and I found just having the head a little bit more elevated made things just a little bit easier for my left hand. But it's not as extreme as we can find, where some players are quite extreme. But it's still just a little bit more than a 45.
Nice. Yeah, thank you for sharing, Tony. Yeah, I got the Sage work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got that too. It seems nice. It's nice that it doesn't have suction cups. I did find that the guitar lift allowed me to do more varied. It was less limiting in the position, that I felt like I could get the guitar wherever I wanted. It was nice. This isn't a guitar lift ad, but if you're not as picky, the Sage work is really nice. Just the magnets, and it just comes on really, really convenient. But cool. Thank you for sharing. Scott, how about you? How do you approach holding the instrument?
Well, I use the ErgoPlay.
There it is.
And it's okay. I mean, the suction cups kind of stink because it's just like Tony was saying. It's like the French polish, it just doesn't adhere to it. It's better if you can just keep it on continuously. But if you have to travel with your instrument and take it off periodically, then it's just, it continues to fail. But
Nice.
But I tried, so I mean, basically, like Tony was saying, when you hold your guitar so much throughout the day, it was, it was increasing discomfort with using a footstool. And then teaching with some type of kind of like guitar support, like with like non-footstool guitar support, is just so much better. Because you feel so much more mobile. You're not having to especially if you're working with young kids, you can kind of move around more freely. So I mean, I used a footstool, and then I used the very little what are those, Gitanos?
Yes.
And those are quite nice because they just fold up and you can actually leave them on the guitar.
You can. Yeah.
But when it fails,
Oh, it's bad.
it's horrible. It's just like your guitar falls.
Yep.
And so I mean that's what's nice about these models here, like this ErgoPlay, or the one that Tony uses, the what is it? The Sage Works or
Sage
whatever.
Work.
Yeah. So it's like when they fail, they kind of still balance there because the guitar's on it. Yeah, I haven't tried the one you have. That seems nice, but it's also kind of cumbersome to kind of carry around. It's like you have to have a backpack for your guitar support. So I mean, the bigger they get, that's kind of an issue too.
Yep.
The one thing I did notice, I don't know, did you guys notice this too? But the first time I used a guitar support, I felt like my guitar sounded better. Like I mean, the back and sides also vibrate just like the top, not as much, but somewhat. And if it's resting on your leg like that, I think it just has less contact. The actual, resonating body. So that was my experience, and I immediately noticed the sound. So yeah, there's some pros and cons, but ultimately I use a guitar support too, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It seems okay.
Yeah. I mean, when I switched over, it's been so long. I didn't notice the sound change, but that is a thing that, the less you touch, it will resonate more. People like that about guitar lift. Yeah, I can go into some of the downsides of the guitar lift. It is quite bulky. I know if you have a case that's like smooth and shiny, you can actually have the guitar lift suction to the case.
Oh yeah.
Alas, I do not. So I carry it around like a goober. But that, and the cups are pretty rough. I have to get adhesives for the back. It will not stay on at all. without adhesives on my guitars, French polish at least. So that is a bummer about it. So it made it challenging to set up too, because it wouldn't really stay in place long enough for me to get a nice feel for it. It would always pop off. So then you would have to actually commit and put the adhesives on, and then you're putting on and then peeling the adhesives off and then putting them back on, and then they get all bubbly and you lose your mind trying to find the exact right spot.
So but with yours too, if the suctions fail, what happens when you're playing and the suctions fail?
It's not too bad. A lot of the time, it's only 2 that fail.
Oh, because there's how many?
There's 4. There's 4.
Okay.
There's 4. But potentially they could all fail, and yes, that would be catastrophic. But I've done a couple coffee shop gigs where I played for like 2 hours straight, and it stayed on. So it's staying on enough that I feel comfortable. I find that if you just wash the cups, if you're really paranoid before a performance and make sure they're clean, they'll stay on pretty reliably, I've found. So I mean enough to perform. So, but yeah, that is a big drawback. They actually have a recent model called the One for All, and it has a cup that goes under one of the sides of the guitar and supports it. So ideally, if things failed, it would still be held up by that cup, which I bought because I was in an unstable emotional condition. But by the time it got here, I was making the other one that I got work. So I have not tried it. It's sitting brand new in the box. So, but I suspect that one might be more limited. I have not tried it. It might be more limited in its placement because you have to make sure that cup can fit right underneath the guitar. So it might be a little bit more limited, but I can't say for sure. I mean, if you can get that cup to go, it would be very reliable. Yes, Tony.
Yeah, I have also a question. Perhaps you could shed some light on that. With that lift, guitars that have a more curved back, like Smallman's, for example, the back is also slightly radiused. Was there some literature about those working or not working with guitars that had bowed backs?
I don't know for sure. I think people have reported having problems with the bowed backs. That was a challenge. I think they've released a product that works on bowed backs, but I don't know for sure. But yeah, I think people have reported that being kind of tricky.
So do you guys both have students who use guitar supports?
I do not have any. I don't have any far enough.
Do you think there's any value in having a student begin with a footstool, or just that's like, it doesn't even matter? Complete beginner, just get a guitar support. That's not footstool.
You have thoughts about that, Tony?
Yeah, I feel that footrests are very inexpensive and rather adjustable. And since students are growing so quickly, I think that it's a good starting place without investing a ton of money. Because I think too, even like the ErgoPlay, I don't know if they make downsized ones.
I think they do. They have one. They have one for younger kids, and same with Guitar Lift. They make. I think you can get like half a plate. So I think you can get smaller ones.
That's excellent. Yeah. What I like about the footrests is just the consistency across my students in the studio. As students kind of reach the upper middle school to high school age, then we kind of explore other options if need be. And so starting off, I've been very happy with using the footrest. And with the really young students, it's really easy for the parents to set up. And it's, I'll put a mark. The students will use a guitar stool to start off, and I set the height appropriate. We'll put a mark on their footrest on where they need to set it. And then, which is also really helpful in recitals. So I have their stool set up with their footrest set up, but there's also a little mark there if their footrest gets collapsed, I know exactly where I need to put it so that they have consistent a consistent height. No, I think it's worth exploring with students, but perhaps when they're not growing an inch a week.
Yeah, yeah. I know when I was growing up, I started when I was around with a footrest, probably around 13. I think even 13 and like into college, I really didn't notice any back or hip problems. So I think even when kids start out, like I don't think they're going to get any. I mean, I would be surprised if they got any rough back problems or anything. And then, it's not too big of a transition to change over when you want to when you're older. So it's probably not.
Yeah, they're not practicing 3 hours, a day or teaching for several hours, So it is something though to think about. Scott, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, certainly, I think you make a good point about kids. When you're working with a young child and they're just growing so much each whatever week or whatever. But so I mean, in those cases, I think it's it's also most of the guitar supports, like non-footstool guitar supports or whatever, they're just less stable. So I think I mean, relatively speaking, they're knocking over the footstool as well. But like the guitar supports are less stable. So I think with kids, just starting with the footstool seems to make sense. But I guess my general thought was like, is there something like inherently maybe good or beneficial to start off with the footstool, for starting off with the footstool? Like, so if you have an adult beginner, would there be any reason? I find when I have a student like, in their early teens or maybe mid-teens or something, and they've been using a footstool, they've been with me for a while, and then they transition to like one of these other supports, their position actually improves. And I think you can get a more ideal position with one of these supports than you can with a footstool.
Yeah.
So I think if I had an adult student that was up for it, I would just suggest that. But I think, the financial commitment initially is also a thing to consider. I mean, footstools are just so cheap, and
Right, footstools are like $20. The SageWorks is $150.
That's up there.
The Ergo Play is just under $100. Ben, how much is the guitar lift?
No, please. Well, again, because I was a little unstable, I think this is horrible. This is horrible. I can justify it because it's what I do. But by the time, because I got it right from Germany, I could have ordered it off Strings by Mail and it would have been cheaper. But I wanted a specific model that was medium tall. By the time I paid for shipping, I paid like $250 for it. So it's just
Lay support is about that too. They've got they range from they've got one on sale $100, $107. They've got like a nice wood one for $530.
Beautiful wood one.
That's beautiful.
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, to get.
I mean, it seems like you can get some of these supports on Strings by Mail, like you said, for about $150 or $100.
Yeah.
But still, yeah.
Yeah.
They're not. That's a lot more than a footstool. So, but I don't know. I guess I was just saying, like, I've noticed overall, like, a better position with the footstool, an improvement in position.
An improvement in position with a support.
Yeah, I mean with the support. Yeah. Not the footstool. Yeah.
Which brings up a question: what is the ideal position?
Oh no! Oh man, I've been searching for it. One thing that I was, when I was kind of in the thick of it and like starting to believe that there's no good way to hold the guitar, like one of them is definitely your legs. Like how far are you spreading out your legs? Is one leg pointed more forward than the other while the other swings out? And how centered can the guitar get with your body is another key thing, I think. How high the neck is. another one, and then how much you have to turn your head. I did a bunch of research. I even looked at other instruments. I looked at sitar players. I looked at pipa players, and it looks like there is no way you cannot turn your neck. So it looks like turning your neck is inevitable, unless you just don't look, of course. But it looks like turning your neck is inevitable. Some amount of leg spread, I think, needs to happen. The more centered does seem better, but I'm not completely centered. But that was one thing I noticed. The more centered you have the guitar, like say you moved it more over to the right, and it was more over your leg, like resting on top of your leg, then it kind of gets too high. But some people do play it high. Like I think Scott Tennant holds his guitar like that, and it gets up kind of high. But to get it lower, you would have to swing your leg out even more, so your leg is not obstructing the instrument. So then it's more centered, but then you're swinging your leg out like crazy. So I encountered a bunch of little, because I guess at the end of the day, it's a balancing act. I guess to answer Tony's question, is that there is no ideal guitar position. It's just how many little compromises can you make? Can you make until you find something that's balanced and that works and that isn't hurting your body, that you can hold for a while. So, but yeah, go Tony.
I have another question though. So, or something to ponder, because even the way we hold the guitar does affect the tone. And so is there perhaps we may hold it in a way that's maybe not physically ideal, but tonally ideal? You know what I mean? One thing that we can play with is the top of the guitar, the angle, like how much tilt out it has.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So the sound hole, versus the soundboard being like perpendicular to your chest, versus, angled up more toward, angled out more towards, so like the sound hole's facing up essentially. But that attitude, that angle can affect, the weight of your right hand and your volume and your power. And so even that can be, if you swing it out too hard, it's too hard for your left hand.
Yeah, the wrist gets more curved.
So, at what point do we find what is the balance, or what is the ideal balance, or what are your guys' thoughts on just posture versus tone, and maybe perhaps some preferences to what you guys like for posture?
Yeah, you have any thoughts, Scott?
I mean, I would just be pretty simple about it. I think you guys bring up a lot of good points, but essentially a position that is most healthy for your body, to a degree, and allows the most accessibility for the instrument, to be playing the instrument.
Yeah.
So, like holding it more center and angled, the neck angled up, allows you to, have, more accessibility to both the higher frets and the lower frets. So all that stuff is quite basic, but yeah, I guess the healthy part of it is like the feet flat on the ground, the legs both, at the same, kind of profile toward the ground as far as the upper leg, being parallel to within reason, and then the back, to be straight without leaning forward. I mean, I see the footstool really creates this kind of leaning in type.
Yeah, I experienced
and it's hard
that.
to escape that unless you make the footstool really high or get a special chair. Where you can sit back in it.
Yeah.
So then you have a chair that you have to carry around everywhere too. But so I think those are the main things. Just like the back being able to remain tall, a nice profile of like the neck being angled at the right position for the individual, because it's so different. Everybody's body is different as far as length of arms.
Yeah. I wonder. That was one thing that I encountered, which was a big reason I reworked my position quite a bit recently. Was spine turning, like turning your spine.
Yeah.
I don't know about it. I talked a bit about it to one instructor of mine. Talked a bit about it with Mary Lou. We were kind of hashing it out, you know, just personally, I didn't like the feeling once I became conscious of it that I was turning my spine to look like I didn't like that back turn at all. So what I have now, I'm just using neck. I wonder what do you guys think about long-term wear? Because it looks like you can't avoid looking with the neck, so something's going to happen to your neck either way. But I don't know. What do you guys think about spine turning? Think that's not an issue, or do you think it might get you after a while?
Sounds like an issue.
I know. I didn't like it.
If you're twisting your spine, yeah.
Yeah, twisting to look. Well, that was the thing. It was keeping the legs. If you center the guitar more, and you lessen your leg spread, then you can end up turning your spine more to see the guitar. So that was a really tricky problem to work out, because it's like I want to save my hips and my sciatic nerve, but now I'm sacrificing my back to turn more. So it was a challenging puzzle to wrangle with. Do you have any thoughts on neck turning and spine turning, Tony?
No. I think that our bodies are quite resilient. So, you know, we're playing an instrument, right? You look at violin players, you're putting a chunk of wood under your chin. You know, you're not playing with a pillow under your chin. There's going to be some level of uncomfort. But as long as you're not like straining, you're not overdoing it. You know, the body is pretty flexible and pretty resilient. Obviously, I think we want to go for the most relaxed position possible. But, you know, I don't like the idea of like twisting your spine, you know, at your hips. I like the idea more of maybe kind of, you know, keeping your body, you know, imagine without a guitar, just, you know, legs shoulder width apart, knees shoulder width apart, or maybe just a little bit more. And your spine you're just sitting nice and tall. You know, you turn your head to the left and just kind of down just a little bit, and that I feel like is good with, you know, minimal or no back, you know, rotating your back. But you know, it could be, you know, maybe a little bit more dynamic, maybe a little bit of back, but mostly neck. You know, I think, you know, we shouldn't be sitting down playing for 4 hours straight. We should be getting up, moving around, you know, doing anything. It doesn't matter if it's guitar or playing sports or anything, doing something for a prolonged period of time. We do need to break and stretch and move. So.
Yeah. I know one thing. So we discussed that a little bit, you know, the spine turning and the neck turning, trying to minimize that. One thing, and I suppose it's more of an advent with modern guitarists, is the higher head, getting the stock a lot higher. I was exploring some extremes. I would send some photos of Tony to get feedback, and you know he'd shoot me down a few times when I was getting a little too crazy. But the height of the head, it seems I encountered a couple things. One is that if you get the head super, super high, it's actually very hard to look at, because you start seeing double when you turn over to look. I mean, it might be worse because I have glasses, but seeing double was horrible. So you like basically couldn't see what you were doing unless you start taking your head back like that. But that's not very, very ideal, because it seems like, and we've already touched on it a little bit, but the higher the head, you know, more accessibility on the frets, you know, some stretches become easier. And it seems like this was the other thing that I've thought about is like the health of the shoulder. Because it seems like you could get the muscles strong enough and you'd be fine. We have Nick, who's an accomplished guitarist. I can't remember his last name. Oh man. At the Guitar Society, but he recently raised his head up a little bit, and you know, had some challenges with his shoulder, but found that when he got the muscle strong enough, you know, it was fine. So I wonder if there's a limit. Is that, I mean, obviously there's the visual thing, but like, will you get in trouble if you lift up your arm too high for too long, or could you just like get those get those muscles strong enough. I don't know what you guys think.
I don't know that I have an opinion on that.
Yeah. Exploring
It's-
the limits.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like
Yeah. Because it
at
seems
some
like.
point,
Well,
at some
go
point,
ahead.
then
Go
it's
ahead.
just going to be different, right? It's like, it'll just be more like whatever.
Yeah.
Just be like parallel to your body or something, and then like
Yeah.
you get that Paul guy.
That's how the pipa players play. The instrument is on
Yeah.
their lap. They look very comfortable, and it's nearly vertical.
Yeah.
But it seems like, and this is a super layman's take on pipa playing. I don't know anything about it really, but it seems like a lot of their playing is higher, in register, so their arms aren't really
Yeah.
up super high to get those bass notes. It's more melodic and higher pitched. So even though their heads are higher, I don't know that their arms are really up there a whole lot. But again, that's kind of after watching just a couple YouTube videos of them playing. So
It's just like the whole thing where like if you hold your hands like in a certain position, just at one position for a while,
Mhm.
like it'll tire. But doing this is easier, moving your hands in different directions, although you're still holding them up.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
this, you're using different muscles or something. So
Mhm.
like I've had the experience where I'm playing like a first position song that's really long. You're just kind of grinding it out in first position. You're like, I need to move to fifth position just to get some release from that one spot.
Yeah.
So I
yeah.
think that kind of plays into it. But I've never had my guitar that high where it feels like my arms going up. But
Yeah.
that's just my personal experience.
Yeah. You hold your guitar pretty high though. Your
I do,
head's
I
up.
feel.
Your head's up pretty high.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Tony.
However, he doesn't. I don't see him really engaging his shoulder to keep his up. He's not really engaging his shoulder. I do find if I am playing in the first few positions or in the first position for a while, like you said, Scott, I do catch myself actually engaging my shoulder, and I have to remind myself not to. But I don't know. There's just times too when you're doing some, like a B7 chord, you got to bring your elbow up a little bit more. You're going to kind of engage your shoulder doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love playing fifth, seventh position. That's like all day with the head up a little bit higher. It's like perfect,
Mhm.
But hanging out in the lower positions, I think for too long, teaching all that stuff in first position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something I notice. So it's something to consider.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think for one thing, that was some sage advice that Tony gave me is because I was obsessing over my reworkings. Just sit with it for a while. So I think I will sit with it for a while. I like it so far, but I do think that might be one thing I'll try for in a few months is maybe just try to get a tiny bit lower. But one other thing I discovered having the head up higher is instead of looking, and I don't know how this will be on my neck in the long term, we'll find out. But it's still a little close if I just turn to the right, but you can kind of drop your neck a little bit, and then you don't see double as much. We'll see how it is on my neck. So far, my neck isn't sore, but it's something that helps the double not be so bad when the head is higher. It's kind
And
of
you look to
leaning
the
forward.
right because you play left-handed.
Yes, yeah.
Just for the people not watching,
I
yeah.
play kind of backwards. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
This attitude of the neck, though, also significantly affects the right hand too.
Oh,
Not-
it does. It does. Big time. Big time.
So nail shape and the angle you come across the strings, your nail shape would be different versus 45 degrees and versus 60 degrees versus completely vertical.
Yep.
The nail shape would have to vary significantly to get a pleasant tone. I find that perhaps the players that have the heads quite high, their tone to be a little bit more brittle sounding. Not bad, but the great players that do it, they sound great. I don't know what their nails exactly look like, but they seem to get a decent tone out of it. But not everybody.
Yeah.
I think it's harder to get a nice tone with it up a little bit higher
Mm-hmm.
on the higher end.
Yeah. Yeah. On that topic, I was fiddling around with all kinds of different things. I noticed that Like I guess if you imagine way back in high school math, kind of the XY graph where you have the x-axis and the y, and then you can have a point anywhere on the graph. Like wherever you move your guitar, whether it be to the right or the left or up or down, will like affect. I found that it affected wrist position, which it was pretty crazy. It allowed you to play around with a lot. Like even having it lower changes so much to the right or to the left. So, I mean, I found that, and maybe this would change based on your nails or something, but higher the guitar, it felt like the wrist got more curved, like this, the higher. Even like moving to the right, I found could like straighten the wrist out a little bit too. It felt like also putting the guitar lower could help to straighten the wrists out a little bit. Obviously, you could go so low that you're turning up like this, which would
You're talking about the whole instrument.
Yeah, like moving it, the whole thing in space. It would affect wrist positions.
That's just the neck angle, yeah.
Yeah. And then you can combine them both, like where you're putting it in space combined with the neck angle so you have all of those variables happening at once, which allows you to do quite a bit, especially if you have a nice guitar support that will allow you to move things around.
Adjustments, yeah.
But because I found that the higher the head, it could help you straighten your wrist out more.
Huh.
I found, maybe I'm a bit off, but that has been my experience. So like, a higher head and then having the guitar lower, I felt, helped me keep a pretty nice aligned wrist most of the time playing with those variables. But yeah. Any thoughts?
I don't know. I think, I have this wonderful picture of the maestro in my studio.
Yes, of course.
And his guitar head is very low.
Yes, it's super low.
And his right hand wrist, because he played right hand.
He did.
Is very bent.
It is.
As everybody's was. So I imagine him holding turning the neck up and his wrist straight.
Yep. It could help the maestro out. But he's probably
That's just what it looks like. They're both kind of like, yeah. So
that and I've some pictures.
He's got a killer B minor chord down though.
He looks like he's turned too, like his back too. So it's like a low neck, and it looks like he's actually turning his back. We talked about back turning, and I mean Segovia played until like the end.
It's really hard. Yeah, it's really hard to examine these things in the context of one person for sure.
Yeah.
Because I feel like most people who go on to like these performance careers are like just outliers.
Yeah, probably.
Like they were going to play pretty well most of the time for a variety of reasons. You just don't see the people who kind of hit that speed bump for whatever reason.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's what works. If I try to think about, is it healthy? Am I hurting myself? Don't want to be hurting myself. Can I do it for a long time? And is it working? Those seem to be some nice parameters to go by instead of just, following what is right because you have been told. Got to think critically around here, I suppose, if we want to survive.
In that photo of Segovia, can you see if he's using a footrest or a stack of books?
I don't know. It's just the waist up.
Oh, man.
Anecdotally, I think I forgot where I heard this, but when he would go on tour, and he wouldn't bring a foot support, and he would just like find whatever was around, a stack of books. I don't know. Can anybody confirm that? Has anybody heard that?
I've never heard that. Nice.
Who's telling me?
It'd be cool if it was true.
It's interesting. Maybe I read it somewhere. I could be just making it up.
Could be. Well, that's exciting. That's good podcast material.
I've seen videos or pictures where like he has like, it looks like a little piano bench for his foot.
Yeah.
He's sitting on a piano bench, but then it looks like a little piano bench for the foot type thing.
Like a little mini stool for the foot.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Wow.
Which is not adjustable.
No, and you could take your sock off and just like let your toes get comfortable on the support.
That's nice. Yeah,
that's a good question. With posture and stuff too. and how you hold the guitar. It is interesting, like at home versus teaching in the studio, because I don't wear shoes in my house. I'm not wearing shoes when I practice. And then it does affect the height. It does affect your, your comfort level. How comfortable are you? Footwear is, we should come up with some like footwear directly for classical guitarists.
Yeah.
Like the organ players, they've got footwear.
Mm-hmm.
Do they? Yeah.
Yeah. I took one semester of private organ, and the organ shoes basically have very slick soles.
It's like the bowling alley. You just
Yeah.
Where when you come in,
you want something smooth so your soles aren't getting caught on the pedals.
Yeah, I mean, I think also with temperature too.
Yeah.
Like especially this time of year and in the state where we all live in.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
Yeah, but that the chair affects so much. That was one thing I was happy with my setup that I got going on now, is the shorter the chair, I can just spread my legs a bit more and then accommodate it. Cause I was getting to the point where I'm like, I might need a specific chair, which is like such a pain to like lug a chair around. And then if you're like playing at a coffee shop or at an open mic, it's just like, the chair is what it is. So it would be such a pain. It's nice to have a position that has some flexibility.
Yeah. I mean, I remember at a point when I was playing, like I had the sleeve and I had the cutting board or the carpet like holder that I had to put on my leg. And then like the special thing for my foot. And every time I played my guitar, I felt like I had to like, get in uniform, like just to even strum it,
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was a period where I was like just trying to scale back on any special thing. Like, I just want to be able to pick up my guitar and play.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's a balance between that. But then when you have your own chair or you have your own, the certain things that you need, then you have a lot of consistency in there. And you're not leaving things up for, chance. Like show up to a gig and they just have, I don't know,
a bar stool.
A bar stool
to play on. Cross your legs like a rock star. Get
then
it
you
done.
could like, use a couple footstools and build a tower.
Yeah.
Yeah, to kind of circle back for just maybe some bullet points of we've great banter, but because some setups are quite complex. You bring up, I've seen people with 2 footrests at slightly different heights. They're using the cushion, and then they've got the non-slip stuff on every leg. There is something about that, that is way too complicated for like a 6-year-old student, right?
Yeah.
So that's why the footrest, there's a simplicity there, and I think there's room to explore. But one thing that I heard is like we all said like feet flat on the ground. And one issue with the footrest I find is sometimes that the footrest is a little bit closer to the leg of the stool or of the chair, and so that knee tends to be a little bit more bent. That heel is not underneath the knee as much, and that's usually a trouble thing. But I find getting the heels underneath the knees, is that something we are in consensus about as far as the heels and the knees?
I think so. Yeah.
I think so. I think, like for me, a right-handed player, sometimes actually my right leg, I'll move it a bit. Like if I'm playing for a while in a rehearsal or something, I'll kind of move that back.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, I do try to keep them both flat and kind of like the heel directly under the knee.
Yeah.
I just think it's a blood flow thing.
Yeah.
I do find that in performing as the performance goes on, or even just in practice, that my right leg, being a right-handed player, is a little bit more dynamic. My left leg is much more stable, and my right leg, well, sometimes I'll get more on the ball of my of my foot. Sometimes it'll be further out, and that variety is nice. But we're not looking to be so stoic in our posture. We don't want to be the Heifetz of guitarists. I think having a little bit more movement in our body and even in our leg allows us to be also expressive, and we can kind of sway our body a little bit more. And the other thing that I think that we've kind of agreed on is sitting up nice and tall, kind of having the spine aligned is what it sounds like. It's kind of a nice takeaway. Minimizing the turn in our spine, maybe more from the neck. It sounds like we all kind of favor the head being a little bit more than a 45. Which does kind of bring into question, where is the contact point for the right arm on the body? Is it closer to the waist, kind of closer to the back end? I don't know how to describe that area of the guitar. More further down on the lower bout.
Yeah.
Those are a good question, and maybe something to consider. Because even as you angle the guitar, the head of the neck up, I mean, you can still contact the guitar in different areas on the right. And I wonder, is there a consensus? Do we have a consensus on that?
Yeah, I mean, it seems that the higher, I know, kind of the default is arm right over the bridge. It seems most people are arm over the bridge. It seems that as you get the neck higher, maybe excessively high, the arm can go past the bridge in its contact point and start moving towards the rosette, so that direction. So that might be something that happens. My head is higher. I've managed to keep my arm over the bridge, which I think feels nice.
Your arm contacting the body.
Yeah, contacting the body over the bridge.
Yes.
But yeah, I think it might be really tied to the head height. It seems like the lower the head, then the more your arm could move behind the bridge.
Is there ever an instance where we would want, or where, obviously as the head were to come down, I think below 45, the arm would kind of pass that point of, if you were to take the bridge and draw a line straight up, to the bout. And it sounds like somewhere between maybe directly above the bridge and then moving more towards the waist, but maybe like half that distance from that point to the waist. Anywhere from half that distance towards the bridge is probably the correct contact point, or a good contact point for ability to reach everything with the right hand, as far as your tone color variation and your different tremolo technique versus arpeggio technique. I'm just wondering, is there ever a time, or a body where your arms are so long that perhaps you do contact? Just asking. Or do we say, do we have a consensus that maybe that target range is between the bridge and halfway to the waist?
So you mean, it's just for some clarification, from the bridge, what do you mean by like the halfway to the waist direction?
So if you take the bridge and you draw a line straight up to the rib, that is one point. And then the other point is, let's take the narrowest part of the guitar, which is the waist. And if you cut that in half, so the distance between the waist and that line that we just drew from the bridge, so like right about there. So halfway between the bridge and the rosette, you draw a line straight up from there. So between that point and the line that we draw straight up from the bridge.
I've seen some people go even before the bridge. Over there. So I
feel like the reach. I'm not long or lanky. I feel like it may not be ideal. It may not be ideal for my reach, but is it those people that do that? Is how old?
Yeah, it seems like that has a lot to do with arm length. Especially like your upper arm versus your lower arm type stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's like where your shoulder kind of sits in a at like kind of at rest, and your arm can kind of just rest on on the guitar.
Yeah, I mean, and when I'm setting stuff up and looking for nice tone and nice hand alignment, I kind of think of arm placement last. I know working with young students, it is nice, per Tony's recommendation, to really start with arm over the bridge. But when I'm thinking about getting set up, I'm thinking about tone, the right angle for nice sound, and nice wrist alignment. And then kind of where my arm contacts is where my arm contacts. I have long arms and I play on a shorter scale guitar. I need a new guitar. That's not so small. I really like my guitar. Well made. But like when I'm on the bass strings, like my arm like almost doesn't really even touch the body of the guitar anymore. So in some ways, and I kind of try to cultivate that, is kind of almost a floating arm, just kind of lightly touching the guitar. So in some ways, the contact point might not be, for an advanced player, might not be all that important for your arm. Because if you want, I've found that what's helped me a lot, especially with stability and performance, is thinking of the activated back and arm energy and thinking of my whole arm, my whole shoulder, it contacted to my back. And then that is where stability comes from, not from like anchoring or pushing really hard down on the body. Because that'll also affect circulation in your arm. If you're pushing down too hard, you're not going to get as much blood flow. So I mean, I don't know. I'm not too concerned about the contact point.
That you do bring up an excellent point about just the downward pressure on the guitar. Mm-hmm. That is a good point about you don't want to be excessive, regardless whatever support you use, but pushing down, bearing down on the guitar. Mm-hmm. I think that's definitely something to avoid and to consider in your postures. Yeah. Not heavily bearing down on your guitar, especially with your right arm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
or the plucking hand.
Plucking hand. Thank you so much for accommodating my orientation. My hand orientation. Oh,
so should we talk about the trio? Do you guys think we covered this?
I mean, there's always more, but I think we discussed it in a good level of detail. Do you agree, Tony?
Yeah, I mean, even it's possible in the future to like talk about like right hand.
Yeah,
you could talk, right hand thumb. Yeah. We could talk about right hand eye finger. Yeah. We could talk about pinky. It seems like we could do like an episode on all thumbs, just left hand thumb, right hand thumb. There's how we hold the guitar. I think we've covered a lot of good ideas and a lot for people to consider. Mm-hmm. Without telling people what to do, but something to explore. And I think that sounds good. I mean, it's possible in the future we might get even more picky and detailed, but I think that's a great overview on just sitting in our posture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we can always revisit it too. Yeah. So, there's always more to dig into still with holding the guitar, which is a pretty complicated aspect, even though you wouldn't think so.
It is.
It's a hard instrument to hold.
So unnatural to hold, yeah.
Yeah, it's rough.
When I see young students, especially in the beginning, or adults, like in that position, it's just, yeah.
Yeah, it's
something to practice and get comfortable with.
Mm-hmm. Cool, but we can segue into kind of our other planned segment, which is kind of our documenting of our trio experience. So I think the most recent, kind of thing we did was we recorded some of our pieces for some demos. Just recorded them ourselves to put up on our website. But yeah. Kind of just talk about that process a little bit. Recording. Why don't you kick us off, Tony? You did a lot of the you did all the setups with the mics, kind of your recording process. Why don't you fill us in a bit on that?
Yeah, it might be interesting to share about recording guitar. Guitar is quite complex as far as the tone. And I've recorded some violin too, and violin is, I think, even more complex. So it's a really hard. Our instruments are hard to capture. You can capturing the brightness, but the richness, and the full range of overtones. So done a bunch of research by reading. I'm part of a Facebook group that talks about classical music recording. I even pulled out some old records of Julian Bream and Segovia, just to get some idea of like what was an accepted sound back then. And I listened to a bunch of modern recordings as well. What's kind of an acceptable sound? So what we did experiment with the setup of microphones, but what we ended up going with was a modified ORTF with small diaphragm condenser microphones that were in cardioid, and they were maybe 3 to 4 feet, about 3.5 to 4 feet away from us. And we were sitting more, not as enclosed as we would like to sit, but we were fanned out a little bit, facing forward more in line with each other. And so the small diaphragm microphones were pointed in between all three of us. So you had guitar 1, guitar 2 in the middle, guitar 3 to the right, and the left microphone was between guitar 1 and 2, and the right microphone was between guitar 2 and 3. And then the small diaphragm cardioid microphones do a great job of picking up like brilliance and clarity, and then I think what I ended up doing was another foot back. I had 2 omnidirectional microphones set up approximately 3 feet apart, but pointed in, they're parallel, pointing forward towards the trio. And again, that kind of lines up between guitar 1, the left microphone between guitar 1 and 2, and between the right microphone between 2 and 3. And what omnidirectional microphones do a good job of for the classical guitar is picking up clarity of pitch on the low end. So our bass notes were clear as far as pitch goes. And I think it does also a good job of picking up the room sound. So in the recordings, I balanced the cardioid microphones further in the mix, and then the omni microphones maybe like, I think it was like roughly 8 to 9 decibels lower. And then I added a little bit of reverb as well to kind of color the sound a little bit. Not much, only to the to all the channels, but hardly
you added a bit of reverb?
Just a touch.
I thought it was all the natural reverb of the hall.
I added a touch, but only in specific frequency range. So not in the low end, not to muddy things up. So I did EQ the reverb. So it was a very limited range, and not the high end range, because when you have reverb kind of in that like 3 to 5 or 5 to 10,000 range, the nail noise tends to stick out when you have reverb on the high end. So I was pretty happy with the quality of sound from, we've done different recordings for rehearsals, and we've done recordings before just using like the Zoom mics, and they've been adequate, but I've been really happy with the dynamic sound that we got. It was a night we could hear the dynamics nicely. You could hear the overtones nicely. You could hear the pitch and the space. It didn't sound compressed. I don't think I even did that much equalizing, just because the mic placement was really ideal. So very minimal equalizing. I think the HVAC was a little bit loud in that building, in the hall. That's kind of a downside. Only noticeable if you really turn the tracks up. And then as far as the recording, we didn't go overboard with multiple takes and punching in, punching out. Essentially, we took at most 3 takes of everything. And then, if some section was terrible, which nothing was terrible. Nothing was terrible. Just if one section was more musical or cleaner than another, then I would pop that in. And we went in with some idea of, setting a metronome and every take, kind of checking. And I don't know if you guys noticed this. I didn't do that. And it turned out, I was actually kind of an experiment. And it turned out that our tempos are very consistent when we're not thinking about it. And so editing things in there was really no tempo deviation.
Really? Huh.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Which is a testament to our practice and our abilities, because even in orchestras, when they record orchestras, it's very similar. And I was so well prepared orchestras, their tempi are quite consistent even across tempo changes. So that was very pleasant to see, and I think shocking. I was a little bit shocked by it.
Wow.
But also like happy about it. So I didn't do too much editing. There was editing, between the takes, but not. We didn't go overboard. This is not like CD quality. It was more demo quality. Something we can post on our website to book us some gigs.
Yep. Yeah, we didn't go measure by measure.
So that was the technical side. I don't know, Scott, do you want to talk about the musical side of things, perhaps? How we...
Yeah, I don't know. I can keep it short, too. It was my first time doing something more like that. Trying to get something that we all thought was quality and had a lot of moving parts there. I don't know. I guess, Ben, you have thoughts on it? Actually, I have a quick thing I might need to attend to.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Yeah, you brought up a little bit about the kind of the feeling of it. It was surprisingly nerve-wracking. It was, because we weren't paying like hundreds and hundreds of dollars for hours of studio time, and we had to get it right. Tony was doing it all, but it was surprisingly nerve-wracking. When you don't want to let your comrades down. So there were quite a few nerves in it, even though we did have the opportunity of taking multiple takes. But a good experience, and I was happy with how it turned out. As Tony said, we did do some chunking. We tried to limit our chunking. I wanted the chunking to get out of hand, but Tony's like, no, the sections have to be bigger. So if we did do any chunking, it would be like, a pretty significant idea, a pretty big section. Nothing like measure by measure. But yeah. So it was the atmosphere, kind of how it felt. It was nice. There were a few moments I recall where we would all just be in the zone, and you get to that point where you kind of aren't completely aware that it's recording, and you're all focusing on the music. So I think a few times we really hit those points. Our Bajo La Palmera, I think, turned out pretty good. We had a few of those points where, we were all kind of rocking out and no longer conscious of the recording, or at least not super conscious of it. So I think that's nice stuff to aim for. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on the experience. We spent a lot of time in there too. I think we spent like 3 hours, 3 or 4. I don't know if that's a lot for studio time.
It was a positive experience.
Maybe those are rookie numbers. Maybe all the big boys spend numbers. 8 hours in this or 12 hours in the studio to get that take just right. Yeah. It makes me think about what we would do, getting something at CD quality. That's intense to think about. Oh boy, better practice more. But yeah, you had some thoughts, Tony?
Well, questions, I was kind of engineering it, and I was really focused on capturing the quality of the sound. I wasn't my playing. I wasn't really too nervous about playing. I was more nervous about, or perhaps distracted about capturing. I didn't want to let you guys down in capturing a terrible sound. So maybe that was what I was most stressed about, and I wasn't really nervous playing after maybe the first 10 minutes of playing.
Yeah.
Like there was minimal nerves in the playing. That is interesting. I wonder what your guys' how you felt about in the moment. So Ben, you were pretty nervous. You didn't want to let me down.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you want to play well.
Did you guys all feel like you were prepared?
Go ahead, Ben.
I was doing some. That was an intense week for me. So I was doing some crunch practicing. I did some crunch practicing, but by the end of it, I felt I was prepared, but just a little tired. Some fairly long practice sessions to get it together.
Are you happy with how you played?
I actually am. I'm pretty happy with it. I think
Excellent.
the only one I'm not happy with is how the first movement of the 5 dances. Some of those high parts. There were some biffs. But other than that, I was pretty happy with it. I know in the trio, I've worked a lot on playing louder, more musically and bajo with the phrases. So I'm happy with how the balance sounds. I'm starting to keep up a bit more. So yeah. But yeah, Scott, how are your feelings?
Yeah, I was happy with it too. I think it's kind of interesting to listen to the recordings now. And I think one thing that's stuck out to me is, and actually I had my wife and my daughter listen to it, and to kind of maybe see if they could hear some of the differences in our tone.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's something that stuck out to me a lot, is you could hear the difference in our tone. At least I could.
Yeah.
And it was pretty noticeable to me. It's not something that I observe when I listen to other trios, quartets, and stuff like that. It sounds more blended, possibly, but that's not something I can be sure of, because I've got to know your tone and Tony's tone quite well after playing with you guys so much. Not as well as my own, but I can certainly identify my own tone, and I know what part I'm playing. So there are a lot of things I know that that kind of help guide my ear. So, but I was kind of surprised by that, and I think it sounds nice. I think our tones complement each other's, and I think we all have nice tone. And so yeah, but it's unique enough too, so you kind of bring a unique quality of sound to the trio. But that's kind of my biggest observation.
Yeah. So by the end, so even with the recordings, still you're hearing the tones is quite distinct.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if that's. I feel like if you're an elitist classical musician, the end goal is that we all sound the same. But I wonder what you guys think. Is there something to having not drastically horribly different tones, but you can tell players apart? Or do you think the goal is we should all sound the same and completely blended? Thoughts on that, Tony?
Yeah, I was just watching an interview of the European Guitar Quartet, and they were talking about. There's maybe just a minute they were talking about the modern ensemble and not going for this super blended, super everybody plays Ponticello at the same time, or everybody plays Tasto at the same time. About having the different voice, sounding like a band. Having the different voices and different characters come through at appropriate times. I do think we just know each other's tones so well, especially the pieces. We know the pieces so well. We know who's playing that part, who's playing the melody here, who's playing the melody there, that we perhaps have a slightly jaded, or maybe not jaded, but a very clear idea. It's just like, we can watch Toy Story and know Tom Hanks, because we know what he sounds like. I'm able to hear, I know what Ben sounds like. I know what Scott sounds like. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. For the recording, I did just get a new guitar, and I made that executive decision to switch. And it is a cedar top guitar, which you all both play cedar. And after working on the recordings, I think it was the right choice, because anytime we've done rehearsal recordings and I've used my spruce top guitar, it definitely sticks out even more to me. And I felt that the cedar definitely blended better volume-wise, tone, color-wise. I wonder what your thoughts are on that, if that was the clutch decision at that time.
I would say if it was me, like, doing it, I would not feel comfortable, like, switching to a guitar that soon. But, I trusted you on it. I'm like, you know what? Tony kind of kills it when he plays. So if he's comfortable doing it, then I'm willing to trust on that. And the blend is quite nice. It definitely I think blends in a bit more. Still pretty bright because it was a new guitar. But no, I think it was a good decision, especially in hindsight, because you successfully played. So that's the only thing. And it wasn't like I was thrown off super big, like, Tony sounds so different. Oh my word! So it wasn't that jarring.
Into our trio.
Yeah. Who is this mystery player? But so I think it was a good decision. A little bit risky, but we weren't. It's not like we were, paying hundreds of millions of dollars for studio time. So it's it's a little risky, but I think it turned out great in the end.
Yeah, it was an important afternoon, morning, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, I think it sounded great. Like I said, I was surprised to be able to hear the difference as much as I did, but I think it sounds nice. It sounds more, it sounds less artificial. Like you were saying, Tony, about that interview. It just sounds more of what you would expect, Mm-hmm. We had different guitars, we have different nail shapes, and, different people, and, everything. So yeah, I think.
So what's next for us? For people that listen, what are we gonna do next?
Uh-oh. Oh my goodness.
Well, we've been working on preparing music, which has been much harder than I expected, personally. It's taken a lot longer than I expected. And I've learned a lot. We could have a whole episode on that, but now that we've basically prepared this music, it's, I think it's time to perform it more. So. Yeah,
we've almost got our hour. We need one more piece, and we'll have an hour. So yeah. That is the plan, as Scott has said. Start gigging. I think we want to aim for some not super high stress situations. Maybe some restaurants, some wine tastings, coffee shops, stuff like that. To get it rolling. But yeah, I do feel like that's the step. Is we really got this material, and let's just run it and perform it for a year.
Yeah.
See what we can get. We are at the early stages for those listening. The early stages. We've done a couple performances, not a whole lot. So
yeah.
We're launching. But yeah, I would say. Any thoughts too, Tony? Where do you think we're headed?
Well, we've been doing a great job of rehearsing pretty much every week this fall, and that's the next thing we're doing. Is we've got rehearsal coming up this week. We'll be tackling what we'll be tackling, and looking to expand our performance opportunities this year for 2026. It's been fun.
Yeah,
Indeed.
It'll be fun.
Well, thank you all for joining us and listening. We will see you in the next episode.